Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are on this fine planet of ours, living the dream. My name's Jeff, and in the studios by her computer is none other than Juliachai. There's my mate.
Welcome.
What was that?
Welcome.
Oh yeah, it is welcome. I thought you were going to speak welcome in German there for a minute. Hey, interesting day today. We actually took time out of life itself, and we took the opportunity to interview a lady who's on 2.5 acres here in Brisbane, and her dream, since we're dreaming the dream, is very passionate about horses, and we had the opportunity to sit down with Carolyn, and she spoke about the healing capabilities of horses with, well, it doesn't matter what age group you are, but the most important thing is the impact that animals have with people. And of course, we all have our domestic animals, cats and dogs, fish. Some countries have their rabbits and guinea pigs, chickens, pigs, and cows. That's if you've got a bit of acreage, but in the city it's primarily dogs and cats, goldfish. But here in Brisbane, on 2.5 acres, there's a lady there's got 3 horses. Actually, got 4 really. And we watched the dynamics of half brother, half sister, and another half brother. In as they came out of their stabled areas into the big arena, it was quite. It was very dynamic, really. 2's company, 3's the crowd. So the older brother was making sure that the younger brother never got anywhere near his sister. But it's just interesting that Carolyn spoke about the fact that when people come, their energy, is that the best way to say it? Would I be correct in saying the energy, or they're just their disposition of the day, or their thought pattern of the moment? When they come, the horses pick up on it and mirror what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you're very perceptive, you can actually then look at the horse and realize you're looking at yourself in a mirror. So if you make that conscious leap of faith and change your thoughts, change your words too, by the way, magic can happen, and it's all through a horse. Yeah. And so we learnt about Carolyn's life in the equestrian field. Her family's been in horses all her life, so there's a sense of profession there coming through the family line. Julia talks about quantum healing and family constellations. It's a really interesting part of healing, isn't it? So time. So might want to bring that focus of family constellations and how you can heal families and importantly people. And of course, what we saw today was very interesting. Well, it was right in our face, isn't it? Amazing with how these horses interact with people. Well, Julia, big introduction there. So,
Hi everyone. Yes. So the subject we're going to talk about is time, and I find that there are different time speeds, like in a car. You have first gear, second gear, neutral, and you also have reverse time. And I think we first realize what time can be really slow when we're at school. We'd rather be somewhere else, and it can go really fast when we're on the break. We're having fun and playing with the kids, with the other kids, and it can be really slow when you're in a cafe waiting for your date to turn up and they don't turn up, and it can be really slow and it's awkward. So it can be a little subjective, our experience of time. But and you tend to think it's just the way that people tell you that there's this measurement, and that's how we measure time. And then when you start learning physics and maths, and they have that problem that you have to solve about if you were a fly trapped in a train that was going at 120 kilometers per hour, and you had one fly flying in the same direction as the train and the other one in the opposite, problem, solve, work out, what the speed is of the flies, and then you find out suddenly that there are different rates of time affecting different people depending on what sort of time-space vector or constellation they're in. But for me, I think I've always been interested in paranormal, and I spent quite a bit of time with people, as have you, Jeff, that can see ghosts and even see flashes of the past. And I do remember sitting in one of the libraries once at a meeting with people who are called UFO watchers, and they specialize on doing that. And somebody just walked in and with their sort of high visibility vest and sat down, and they were wearing boots and shorts and work gear. So they really, and so I was really surprised when they said, "Oh yeah, sort of I was driving up in the remote Queensland in the desert one day, and suddenly there was this mammoth coming out, and asteroids going off, and it was just like, but he was just driving through that landscape, so it sounded like this person had just basically driven through a place where timelines overlap." Equally, I've also heard people who can see the Aboriginals in our country in certain areas. That I have a friend who's a dowser, and she comes from a family of dowsers, so they will often douse for ghosts or previous people who've lived in the same land that we are living in now, and that haven't realized or haven't vacated that. So again, the timelines are kind of overlapping. So just from those kind of experience, I've come to the conclusion that each of us has our own timeline, and that generally the individual's timelines, apart from the ones that agreed to be born at the same time, but that they are basically all happening at the same time. It's just we experience time differently so that we can have our set of experiences and challenges in this lifetime, not get confused. So, the Shakespearean England might be happening at the very same time as us. It's just time is what is the fabric through which the whole thing can be sort of scrolled out. So it's not like all the language on the scroll, all the players on the scroll are all condensed into one timeline. They're all sort of separated out. And then more interestingly, you can actually step off the timeline. And in physics, we have that with the edge of the black hole. And there's been a lot of debate around what happens. The black hole is where everything that is of matter and light disappears into the nothingness, pretty much the binary zero. And cosmologists have observed, sort of what happens at the rim of a black hole. But of course, you can't go into the black hole, otherwise you'd disappear. So there's been a lot of speculation about events that kind of scrunch up at the edge of time, at the edge of a black hole, and then disappear into nothingness. But certainly when we go into the dream time, or we're going journeying, sort of using the shamanic sense, or we go into trance, it seems that we actually have access to a space that is beyond time, that is not limited by time. Any? Sorry. I'll check in with you, Jeff, and see if that's making sense or if that raises any questions.
Painting a picture, I was just going into it. I was being drawn into it. It's it, yeah. Particularly the black hole on the event horizon, yeah.
Yeah, did you know that the space between our atoms is wider than the space between the stars, proportionally?
No. It's maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to, you could condense all the matter on the pin in the physical universe onto a pin, and the rest is just lots of empty space in between. So they often say that it's an insult to be told that you've got an empty head, but in fact that probably is reality.
That's pretty profound, isn't it? So in the timeline then, I mean, where do animals come into that form of consciousness then? Because that's what we're talking about here, it's the human consciousness.
Yeah, well, that's the really interesting thing. That's also one of the aspects that I kind of delight in, because we watch ants and they have a certain speed, and we watch slugs and they have a certain speed, and then we watch swallows and they just fly so fast. It seems to be amazing. We now know that plants and trees are communicating with each other, and they grow over 300 years, so they must experience time differently. And I think someone was explaining to me that, of course, it is our consciousness and our brain that processes the information, and the speed at which we process information is clearly dictated by our biological computer and the sensors, and at how quickly we can process the information and then try and make sense of it. But get this, animals and humans and plants and stones, we all process the sensory input differently. So we're actually all on, a bit like the electromagnet, the radio frequencies, we're actually on different with bandwidths in terms of processing information. So therefore our sense of time is also different. And that could mean, for example, that if I was a snail and Jeff was a fast animal, which I'm trying to think of, all right, I'll make you a snow leopard. The snail arguably would completely be unaware of the snow leopard's existence, because unless the snow leopard stepped on you, because the snail is on such a slow time level compared to the snow leopard, and equally, that you can then play that into trees and stones, etc.
So one bound of the snow leopard would be equivalent of a week in snail time, yeah?
Yeah.
The same leap.
Yeah, and then if you use the argument of the Eckhart Tolle, all the power is in the here and now, you could argue that the snail is probably the wisest animal. So, yeah.
So when you do, you're working with folk from a hearing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You just sit down with them like you're doing now and just gently nurse them, probe them. I don't want to say probe, just ask them questions that you feel are relevant, and then they seem to open up themselves and then start talking about their own consciousness or where their paradigm is or their belief pattern is.
Yes, I certainly have to assess and identify what a person's belief pattern is, because it's like their architectural construct. And generally people come to me because they want to change something that's not working or that isn't happening for them. So, it's my job to get them to the place where it can be. And often it's the ideas or the mind constructs that have barriers or have a gap between where somebody is now and where they want to be. So, for example, relationships, often something that vexes or uplifts us the most, but as most of us will spend quite a lot of invest a lot of time and emotion into relationships, and that pretty much is one of the key areas of our learnings. That somebody might come to me and say, oh, I always end up being attracted to the same type of partner, and I need to break that pattern. So they've identified what is not working for them, and I then have to get them to the paradigm of where they no longer believe that they always attract the wrong type of partner. and that they can envision themselves with the right type of partner in the future. Or they might be somebody who often takes risks recklessly, might be with alcohol or gambling, or with affairs, or just other things, and so that's what's not working for them, and they've identified that, and they want to move to a place. They've identified how they want to be, but they don't know how to get there. So generally, my job is actually to provide bridges and constructs to that place where they want to be. Some of it is actually often lateral thinking. So, for example, if I'm working with somebody who plays tennis really well and sort of second league, but when it comes to the competition, then they get anxious and have a meltdown, and they just don't perform as well as they would normally. I then basically have to find with them some time in the past where they were actually strong despite all odds, and they could overcome the challenges, and then try and translate that part of their personality into the sports arena, into the tennis competition. So some of it is by offering constructs and suggestions, and some of it is by helping people reevaluate how they identify with themselves, or the story that they spin about themselves.
Interesting using the word story. Hey, the statements often said, "Is a champion born or a champion made?" Yeah. When you're looking at that timeline, are you expanding from the individual and just looking from that family constellation to find out whether or not they've inherited aspects of their parents or their grandparents on either side that creates their beliefs? Is that
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. When we're doing more when I work with people who have chronic illnesses or blockages, say in their heart, liver, or certain organs or bones, there are three sources that those dysfunctions or dissonances or can be coming from. One would be either the environment, so it's toxic or not supportive, or it could be from their own life, the story that they've lived, and just the collateral damage. And that might, of course, include things like accidents, be they and trauma, be they physical or emotional. And then the third thing that could be the source of that illness or dysfunction could be ancestral baggage, which is stored in the DNA and simply passed on generation through generation until it's been resolved. And so when we work with people, it is often good to go to the body, to cellular level, and tune into what the emotion, the energy feels like. And I was just working with someone last week, and we were tuning. She was saying, I get really, really angry and mean with my partner, and she just wished she wouldn't be like that, but she didn't feel she knew she could. So rather than sort of try and track through their childhood as to what went wrong, that she gets upset when he says this or somebody says that of that nature, which is the traditional method, I work with their method, which is just called the DNA recalibration, where we simply talk to the organ involved, and it tends to be the liver. We tune into the liver on the cellular basis and just work out whether what's happening energetically. Then we recalibrate it, and we basically found then when we released the ancestral stuff, it was just like this. It was so heavy, whatever was sitting in from her ancestors, it was just so heavy, she just released it completely. And then her liver felt fine and light, and because it wasn't dragging that stone away, it wasn't short of energy. When we're short of energy, we tend to go into snap. Into like, can't cope, snap, get away, don't bother me, go away kind of mode. So I know that
really throwing a few things out there that if you're listening to the show on the radio or watching on the Facebook site, you use the word sense and feeling and so forth. Most people would think, oh, have you got an MRI body scan or something like that? But it's nothing like that at all. It's you using your own energy field as a result of your practitioner work doing Qigong, and you realise that you sense and you fall into your body and you know exactly how your body is feeling. Once you understand your own body, then you can actually empathise with the individual concerns. That's probably on the mark, or I'm away from that?
Yes, that's true. Sometimes we have people who can't feel into their body, and that simply just don't have the awareness of what's going on, or haven't even got the idea that they could tune into that, or that the liver might, have a certain frequency or vibration or feeling. So in that case, it falls to me to tune in and scan and pick up on the energies. And as a Qigong practitioner, we train in that, first of all, for ourselves, because basically if there's a stiffness or a blockage energetically, then the Qi won't flow. And the way to release any blockages or become aware of any deficiencies of your energy is simply to put your attention, or the light of your consciousness, which is like a torch light, it's almost like the white light, shining into like a room that you've never been in before. In this case might be your liver or your gallbladder or the adrenals that you've just not been aware of, and because you haven't paid attention to it, your subconscious hasn't given you information about it. So once your mind becomes interested in what's happening, say in your right adrenal as we speak, you will actually find that your body intelligence will start giving you that information. So it's like with the radio in the old days, Jeff, you simply say, all right, I'd like to listen to 88 FM, and you sort of, turn that button, you tune in, and then the signals start coming in and your body starts resonating with it as the practitioner, or if you're doing it for yourself, your mind will start resonating with those brainwaves.
So you're really saying mind over matter is what you're tapping into here, isn't it?
Yeah, and everything is energy. Everything is frequency. It's just some things are slower than the others. So, and if you think about it, to see, we have to have light bouncing into our eyes, and the molecules have to be oscillating and translating that information. So we're constantly doing that. So not with any frequencies, we're constantly doing that. It's just we're not necessarily taught by society to be aware of that or to use that. But on a sort of subliminal level, we do. It's like you said last week, when you go to a shopping center, there's all this competing information being streamed at you, all these bright lights and colors bouncing around, and it's very easy to kind of lose your center because of that. So we are responding to it. It's just generally all unconscious.
Okay, so you mentioned the word release. So if I was listening to you and saying release, are you saying that I start getting teary and I start crying up, or there's I don't know, do I start doing the shake, rattle and roll and start dancing? What do people do to do a release?
To do a release? Well, the release is actually pretty much, it's actually quite fun, because what I tell people to imagine it is like, imagine you were the prime minister or the king of this country. So your mind actually, once it's made up its mind, your body, which is like the administration, the bureaucracy, it goes and implements everything. So, when you're a teenager and you look at the mirror and you kind of go, oh, I don't look like that. Oh, I hate my nose. Guess what? You're going to feel like you hate your nose. Your nose is going to remember. Or, sort of, I wish, sort of that, those thoughts, those decisions. And that's why you have to really learn to be aware of your thoughts and the energetic impact and the biological impact of your thoughts. It just gets implemented immediately. So when we say release, what I will do is I'll basically say, oh, there's that stuckness in that liver. What does it feel like? And that people will sort of describe it however it comes to them in whatever shape and form it makes sense to them. So some people say, oh, it's like a rock, it's really heavy, and we'll sort of look at how heavy is that rock, because it's basically energy that is condensing into that kind of frequency of a rock, which is pretty slow and pretty heavy. And then what I'll often do is I'll either say, well, what would it be like if that rock wasn't there? What would it feel like? So we're already constructing the alternative paradigm, and the body will actually immediately give them that option of feeling what it would be like without that energetic blockage, which is kind of simulating itself like a rock. So then, of course, they feel lighter and they feel better, and there's that relief. So having then experienced the contrasting states, I then say, do you want to keep it or do you want to release it? Generally, not always, they will want to release it. And sometimes we'll go and look at the cause of when was the first time that first molecule of that rock came into your life, and they might get a flashback or just a knowing, oh, that's when this happened, or that's when, I decided that. And then at least they know what the cause is of that kind of energy, and then they can avoid it again in the future.
So would you say, when it comes to the sexes, male and females, would you say that there's a tendency for both males and females to hold their energy in different aspects of the body, or are they quite common to be placed in the kidneys and livers or the spleen or in the pancreas?
In terms of the organs that you've mentioned, the blockages or the good qualities that are in the organs, they tend to relate to the different elements within you. And energetically, a lot of people don't really differentiate between willpower, which is actually a type of energy that resides in your heart, and it goes down to the stomach. And obviously for men it will be stronger. So men will often, because they're from the time that they identify with being a boy, they will be taught to express themselves and to assert themselves. So often with the men there'll be stronger blockages on the left side of the heart, because they're being right side dominant, right side being the go out, get, the masculine, and the left side of the heart being female. With the women, what you'll often have, and this is more in cultures where women are assigned certain postures. So, for example, growing up, and if you look at pictures of the Queen and all that, she will always sit with her ankles crossed. Legs will always be closed because, why? But that interrupts the flow of kidney energy up your groin, which is the earth energy. So women will often have deficiencies down in sort of kidney and stomach area, weakness. And then the other big one is that women and girls are usually supposed to people please more and be less expressive, about, or less clear about their boundaries. And I think, in my big fat Greek wedding, play about that. And I remember going, oh, you can get a man to do what you want the back way? How do you do that? But anyway, so back to women. So often women will have more blockages around the chest, where the will is expressed through the heart and through, sort of wide shoulders. And, we tend to have narrow shoulders and sort of, just, so yes, there are differences energetically that are quite common because of the gender cultural expectations.
And that gender, so start off when you're working with adolescent girls and boys, I mean, there's obviously an age group between the puberty of a girl and the puberty of a fella, but have you noticed something in that area?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Have you noticed anything energetically in young girls going through their puberty when it comes to the puberty of the fellas? Obviously, there's about a 6-year difference between the girls and the boys. Is there you notice anything different?
Yes. I mean, it's like when you walk through a city and you see a group of builders. You're going to cross the road because the energy is completely different, right? And of course, when teens are going through that time period, there is a lot of changes happening. Often they're still quite gangly. Some of them are embracing, growing up and being full man and woman, and some of them are in complete denial about it or resisting it because it's not something they're comfortable with or they've come to terms with. So energetically, it's more how they're adapting to that situation. Then, of course, they might have different dreams that are happening, and certainly in the sort of ancient texts, they do talk about the fact that there is that flowering and budding of energies that are available. So there's a bit of the widening, the rounding out for the women, whereas the men are, they're also widening out on this axis and becoming more assertive. And this is why at that age you often get the conflict happening between teenage boys and their dads, because they're actually stepping up to becoming a man and standing up for themselves and saying, no, I'm not putting up with that anymore. So there's that testing of the will again that gets expressed through the horizontal part of the cross.
And we actually saw that today with those horses.
Yes.
We saw that. So two males, one's a stallion, one's the gelding, and the mare. So it's really interesting. Carolyn said that the horses, it's a matriarchal society that the female runs it. Although in this case, the big fella, he was 18 hands high. He was a gigantic horse, wasn't he? So he was making sure he was the boss, wasn't he? But more importantly, he was telling his half brother, back off. God, it's really interesting moves, isn't it? He was sort of.
Yeah, it was kind of, and you could see the young one. He had that young sort of, still, let me try, but I'm not sure, kind of, stop-start kind of energy, whereas the other one was really set. I know who I am, and this is it. And he could already, the older, the stallion basically could anticipate what the young one was going to do, and he just moved his bum.
Back off, mate.
Yeah, back off, mate. But equally, I was watching them because the stallion was, they were doing what they call grooming, where they reach their head across and nuzzle, and then the other one will do the other one. So you get this beautiful, bit like when swans do that crossover and that circle. So you have like two horses, and they're just sort of nuzzling each other or grooming each other. And to be fair, I think the stallion actually went and offered to do that with the young one, and he just was missing the cue completely. But to go back to humans, I do adore being with teenagers or younger people because their energy is still very upright. You have that energy that's just like a fresh hose that's pressurized correctly. The energy is basically coming up really up straight through here. Whereas with older people, who've started working life, and who've had to fit in and adapt and compromise their lifestyles and get used to, unnatural sort of working office environments where, rather than being outside, you're inside and all that. And you can really sort of see how the body starts getting disjointed. The head is completely disconnected from the hips often. The posture slouches because it hasn't been, we stop jumping, for example, a lot as adults, whereas kids are always bouncing around. So the spine's not getting that lengthening anymore. And there's sometimes you get that sort of flatness because they've given up. They're just resigned to what they're doing. And so there's a big difference. But I think the great thing about now, the great lockdown is that I go out and people are in the parks and, they've got they're really doing something for themselves, and they've got the time that they need to be doing that. And hopefully that this period that we have is something that we can all use to reconnect with our bodies and spirit and soul and the animals that bring us into the present, and that we can rejuvenate, actually. And of course, there are a lot of energetic shifts that are taking place at night. Jeff, I think you probably have been noticing those too, haven't you?
Well, sometimes I wonder if I'm in this world or in the bloody dream world, eh? So just I don't know. I can't explain it.
Oh, you know, it's just the one. Yeah. So, yeah. So that
I've actually wondered whether this is the dream world, this so-called. And when we go to sleep at night, that's the real world.
I did have it actually. I was dreaming last night, and I was going, "This is not." You know, I was actually saying that the real world isn't real. It's the other one is real. And at the moment, it's kind of I'm getting all my briefings in the dream time, and then I'm trying to match it up when I'm awake, because trying to sort of integrate the two together.
I was talking about animals. My brother said he's been out walking every day. He's grabbed his wife's bike and he's got onto that, and now he's decided to buy himself an e-bike. So that arrives tomorrow, apparently. So his neighbours have decided to get e-bikes as well. So talk about fitness and getting out there. Mind you, in my place, I've got 10 currawongs turn up in the morning, 4 kookaburras, 2 butcher birds. I know about 5 very Indian minor birds, and they're all thrown up at the back door, you know, at the balcony there. So
it's almost as the animals are coming to check on us and see that we're okay.
I feel so embarrassed because I feel like I need to go down to bloody Aldi's or butcher shop and get some mince.
Well, really it's your relationship with the birds, isn't it? It's your relationship with the animals that counts. It doesn't really matter what other people do and say. And I've had lots of friends saying, oh, you know, they're reporting to me, you know, oh, my friend Christine, moth came and visited, flew right into the house and sat on her leg and did a little dance. And then my other friend out in Brookfield, you know, sort of black feathered cockatoos that come in and called out to them, and he'll hop out and run out with his son. So it's back to, you know, spirit speaks to us through plants, animals, people, through rocks, through every living thing. And we just have the time now to go out and do that. Isn't it wonderful? It's the game changer, Jeff.
Very, very positive. Are you leading into a particular board game now, are you? It sounds like you're doing.
Well, I think you were giving us that analogy today that we're not playing Monopoly anymore. The banker's been left sitting high and dry while we go off and play other games, and we dream our dreams and invent new games. And just this week, I've been collaborating with 6 other healers, and we've set up the Healers Corner. And again, that was just an idea of, well, let's put our resources together, let's pool our resources. So using the Monopoly analogy, we're pooling our money pool, and we're going to not occupy existing spaces. We're building our own new territory called Healers Corner, and we will basically engage with people that way. So, and you know, you're doing this StreamYard, which is new for you. You're collaborating with people all over, and you've got people coming in to collaborate with you now, right?
Well, it's touchy, feely, you know, like one step at a time. Like, just trust, isn't it?
And yeah, I think that's
no set agenda.
The frustrating bit is not knowing really where we're going, but we're following, you know, the breadcrumb trail that Spirit is giving us, the hints and the signs, and we just have to go, all right, I'm not in control, I'm not dictating where this is going to end up, but I'm happy to show up on the dance floor with whoever turns up for my day-to-day. And I'm not going to sort of say, we got to do the foxtrot today, Jeff, because it might end up being, you know, I don't know, the time
warp.
The time warp.
Step to the left.
And to the right. No.
That's good. But then, sometimes you have to take that leap of faith. I mean, I run my businesses that are completely, any particular business person would just shake their head, but I focus, if you put together a business plan, that I can understand having a business plan and a structure to it. And but what they do is they set their goals and they put financial benchmarks that they got to achieve. Yeah, and the art of manifestation is to use that consciousness to actually dream the dream. But in fact, in reality, they've actually put themselves with a finite constraint. They're saying, right, this is how much. This year we're going to make a 3% increase in our profit and get everybody on board. And sure enough, they manifest that extra 3%. Yeah. But what happens if you don't do that and just come from a place of passion, you know, getting people around you who share that same passion, and the results speak for themselves. You know, you don't need
beautiful synchronicity, don't you? And everyone, there's that extra special energy when, you know, you've come together and created something new together that was far greater than what our, you know, little minds might have come up with.
Well, I've seen that in local sporting groups, for example. Yeah, so I'll speak about two clubs. One's called the Underwood Netball Association, and across the little road, if you want to call it such, as the Rochdale Rovers Soccer Club. Now that used to be the Brisbane City Council's Rochdale tip. You know, so it was refuse, and then they let it the sediment sink, and then they'd be able to get the methane off it, and it became a major football facility there. So there was rugby league in there, and there's the soccer's in there, the girl guides, and then the netball's in there, and the BMX is in there, cricket's in there, and there's playgrounds, softball's in there, and what transpired was the Underwood netball girls just got themselves a Besser block building, yeah, and they had some bitumen courts and then grass courts. Their problem was there's no able-bodied men, you know, so the wives and their girlfriends would ask for their fellows to come and give a hand, but generally it was mowing the lawn or it was just doing a bit of tidy-up work. But across that driveway, the boys all got together and they built themselves a clubhouse. Yeah? And it's got all the changing rooms and it's got the bar and all that stuff. And so you watch how the girls would turn up fully kitted out, ready for a game of netball, play their game, get in the car and go off and go to the fruit and veggie, get groceries and go home for the evening meal. The boys would all turn up, have their game, go and have showers and go up in the club and have a few beers and have a meal. And so if the girls wanted to meet a boy, they had to go across the road and into the club with the boys with the nest, you know. So when the local councillor at the time speaking to me and said, the lack of male manpower at the Netball Association caused a bit of a concern for him. So he had to fork out $100,000 out of his council funds to go and build a 4-tiered grassed area, almost like a stage set, but it was designed in such a way that when you went up a step, you could actually lay out blankets and you could put up an umbrella and all that stuff for all these visiting teams that are coming to play at Underwood Netball. Yeah? And I looked at it, $100,000, and I thought, bloody hell, if those guys across the road had come that would have been built for at least $5,000, because those guys would have got on the phone, got their mates with backhoes, bobcats, would have done deals with various suppliers of metal and bloody hardwood sleepers, and would have got the turf guys, boom, boom, and it all been a working bee done over 2 weekends. Yeah. And I looked at it and I thought, well, got some big changes there. But what's actually transpired now is that the boys at the football club, the soccer club there, they decided they want to buy themselves a premiership. So they forked a lot of money and they went broke. Not only have they gone broke, they've gone broke twice now. And the result now is that the local city councils forgave them for their debt, which is $280,000 or something like that. And councils come in and resume their clubhouse and have actually gone and demolished it, would you believe? And now they've got grants from state government council, and they've gone and built this humongous big complex, which will compensate the soccer people, the BMX guys, there'll be a community group rooms and all that stuff. But guess what? The city council is providing all that. The other ones are putting up the temporary fencing. They're putting the people in there with work safety vests and workplaces and all that stuff. Whereas those original clubs were actually built by the local people who, community spirit, they all came together, focused on getting the job done. Not only did they get the job done, and then they met afterwards and they built their community as a result of putting that labour into that, into those complexes, or into those soccer club and to the Underwood netball with the Besser blocks. But that's how you build a community. That's how you dream your dream of providing amenities for your group. But when the council comes in and does it all for you, it just doesn't have the same feel about it, same essence. Yeah. I think we need to get back to that point in time where people come together and they build things, and as a result, you know, the old fellas come down and they might do a few little things, and they've got their networks, and the strapping blokes do their things, and the young boys and the young girls come together and they might kick the ball around and have a play, and the girlfriends and the mums come down and make the sandwiches, and they work in the tuck shop, and you know, like, it's community. I think we've lost that here in the cities.
Yeah, and I think that's every member, every human wants to know that they are of value, and that they're that they can be a part of society and contribute and be meaningful. So I guess, yes, that's the centralization has taken away that option that used to be there at sort of village community level, that people would basically be multi-skilled and band together and work together if necessary. And I actually saw this in Vietnam. You know, a lot of villages will build their own church, and it's not just a little church like here, it's like a huge cathedral. And the teenagers, if they want to play, you know, they'll actually have, they may be going to church, but they might be called in to, you know, lay the grass or mix the cement. So as everybody does it together, and you actually learn far more skills that way when things are done on a community level, aren't they?
It's a natural way of learning, isn't it? And that progresses all the way through, isn't it?
And I remember when I was a member of the transition town, there was some concern that that in Western societies, the number of farmers as a percentage of the population is diminishing, and that actually the knowledge about how to farm is being lost. And not just, you know, the knowledge of how to farm, but how to read the nature, the lay of the land, and care for it. And I know you had a really inspiring story, which is actually why we decided to talk about animals last week, about that farmer who
Max
speak to his cows. Do you want to tell that story as a finishing story? I think that's a great story, Jeff.
What about the country town? We changed the name of that country town?
It's up to you. It's more the story that matters.
Yeah. There's a fellow who would you believe it, does flower readings, yeah, So he doesn't get white wings flower. He actually gets real dinkum flowers. And he asked people to go put them in a brown paper bag and put a number on it. And his gift is the ability to open up that brown paper bag and pull out a leaf or it's got a flower or a bunch of flowers. And he would actually make a conscious link and give that person a form of consciousness about where that person's coming from, where they're currently now, and where they're heading to. So whilst he was doing his presentation, this elderly fella came in. He's dressed pair of old dungarees, bit of the old black singlet, Teddy Howe type country boy, and from northern New South Wales actually, or not northern New South Wales, central New South Wales. And mind you, he came in the back and sat, and at the end of the show, these ladies stepped up to this particular fella. He's doing the flower readings and said, "Oh my God, it's Max. You never see Max come in town. He never goes through anything like this. Oh my God." Anyway, so Max sat there very patiently and waited. And then this flower reader said, "Oh, how can I help you?" And he said, "I read about this story," and he said, "There's not many people I can talk to in my town or even the region here, but my grandfather had the gift and my father didn't get the gift." And my grandfather said, "Well, it probably skipped to your son. So when I was born, there was an observation to see if I had the gift." And sure enough, when I was 4 or 5, I used to see these little people in my bedroom come in under my bed and start talking to me. And then, generally speaking, I used to get shown these other taller beings, and they said they come here and they come here to teach me. And so they taught me everything about how to work the land. So you mentioned before about the topographic aspects of the land and how the water would fall and where you could put your dam and so forth. But these elementals and other, I suppose I'm going to use the word elementals, leprechauns, if you want to call it as such, animal spirits would come, and they'd actually explain to them, some of his cattle might be crook. They needed to be shifted to a new paddock. There might be too much clover there. If he'd gone and put a fertilizer there, he might have just overbaked it somewhat. But he'd be following their instructions, and a lot of it was all natural organic fertilizer. Anyway, he carried on to say that, he got the gift and he started to say to his father, "Well, these people come and talk to me today." And his grandfather was, "Right, okay, he's definitely got it." And so stock buyers would come onto the property to buy Max's cattle. And the difference here with Max was the stock buyers would say, "Max, how much do you want? How much do you want?" And so Max never went to put his cattle to send it to the meatworks where you get paid on the dressed weight when it goes across the scales. Stock buyers would come in and guess the weight and say, "Well, I'll give you this amount of money." But it got to the reputation that his cattle were of such a state of consciousness that their meat and the marble of the meat was of such profound content. That's why the stock buyers said, "Max, how much do you want?" And he would say, "Okay, give him the price." Then he would actually go into the field, and then he would talk to the cattle. To talk to them, say, "Look, it's time for some of you to go. Can you sort it out between yourselves? The truck will be coming tomorrow. It'll be down at the gate." So the next morning I turn up and go down there. Sure enough, 6, 7, or 8, whatever, just come out of the herd and be there waiting for him. And they go off in the truck, and then he'll get his check. But not only was it the cattle, but it was also he was getting told, the different types of grains to grow, and so he could feed his cattle, and also sell the different grains. Such an inspirational story, but he couldn't talk about that in his local community. They would be saying, "Oh, nah, You know what I mean? Like, you know, like, hello.
Yeah, not in that generation, but you know, I mean, luckily now people can talk about it quite openly. I have a friend who will talk about the elementals that are advising her in the garden, and she came in for the meditation once, and she said, "Oh, I was doing the weeding, and I pulled out this big dandelion, and she said I got such a telling off from the elves. They were so cross with me. They said I spent a month growing that."
Oh, you're right.
And I once worked with a teenager, actually, and she had a lot of anxiety, and it felt to her like it wasn't herself, but it was just this voice in her head that was just making her really, really anxious, and she just couldn't control it. And actually had panic attacks. So when we tracked down, it was actually an elemental that had been with her family, I think in Ireland or something, 3 generations ago, and it had joined the family. And because the elemental had joined the family, a bit like in Harry Potter, where he's got can't remember anyway, that elemental that sort of serves him. But in this case, because that elemental joined them, and they'd done a bargain with it that, you know, it would be with the family, and they would listen to it for planting advice, they were actually able to grow crops when everybody else had a famine. But you know, you kind of think it would just sort of at that generation it would stop, but no, it kind of followed them all the way to Australia. And the parents in this case are very academic and IT oriented, so there's really not much gardening. So basically the elemental or the elf is completely underutilized and bored, so it's creating all this havoc. So the only way for her to calm it down from having excess energy was to basically go into the garden, and then the elemental would be happy, and because it was doing what it needed to be doing, which is helping the family grow plants. So yeah, there are lots of stories out there when you start talking to people and they feel it's safe to talk about it. So, and yeah, thank you for being brave enough to talk about it.
I know, it's just a sharing, isn't it? I mean, you're dreaming the dream. It's about what is the dream, and then there's people out there who do dream big, you know, and whether it's JFK saying we're going to the moon and before the decade's out, or you know.
Yeah. So here's the dream that I'm currently playing with and you know, I've been working with. I've been engaging with people who are doing air bending or water bending, and they're really practicing and dedicating their lives to it, or a lot of time. And they are pretty much the next stage of humans, you know, becoming the new human. But what if, you know, once we know that we can engage with the wind elements or with the grass that grows, what if we can also engage with the elements within us, because we're also made up of elements. So that's there's as without, so within. That's the sort of next stage, I think, of the dream.
Dream the dream. I mean, I think I was saying to those ladies today at the horse farm there, you know, what's your passion, what's your dream? I mean, I don't know. So I know kids that I went to school with, and they knew exactly what they wanted to do, eh?
Yeah, and it's just beautiful, because when people are excited, as a Qigong person, you can actually see when people are talking about something that they're excited about it, the Qi really rises and they sort of become more upright and more engaged. The field opens up. Whereas when they're just talking like this is my name, this is what I do, and this is what I think, and I don't really care. The energy is completely different. Energy field is completely different. So yes, follow your passion, because otherwise you're just wasting energy on something that doesn't really matter.
Oh, very good. Great topic. All because of 3 humble horses.
Yeah, I guess that's what we learn from animals as well. So the other thing we learn from animals is how to shake off upsets really easily. That's what I learned from our dogs. You know, it's sort of, and we adopted puppies. So of course puppies, you know, get into trouble because they don't know where to pee, and they sort of destroy things that we humans would like to keep. So we didn't hit our puppies. We were just taught to use the newspaper and roll it up, make it more scary and sound stern. But it'd be really frustrating because you'd be doing this like big drama and show so that the puppy would realize that this was not behavior that was approved of. And then it would just shake itself and then walk off with tail up. Sort of like, it's just like, that's their natural mechanism, is just shake it off that energy that I just downloaded on it of disapproval. But I did learn from the puppy, that's what you do. If you just like, somebody says something that upsets you, you just go and shake it off. And then you're okay again. But you've got to shake it off so it doesn't lodge into your field.
Yeah, so the puppies do that and the cats just go.
The cats don't even listen. Mind you, our dog used to flatten the ears. You could really see when it was closing the ears off. It's just like, okay. And then it would start looking for the exits.
Oh, good. Very good. Well, thank you for coming and sharing. It's very lovely. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, mate. It's good. So you've been listening to Radio FM88 Australia and broadcasting live, free to air in Brisbane town, or the southern parts of Brisbane, I should say, on the internet, on the app, and of course here through Facebook on, what do you call this up? Qigong?
Mind's Ease.
Yeah, but that's your website, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's also my name, kind of, Mind's Ease.
Yeah, but on Facebook, we're coming through on your Facebook. What's your stream? Qigong?
Yeah, it's Mind's Ease as well. Mind's Ease, hypnosis and Qigong. But it's Mind's Ease.
I knew it was expanded. Yeah, I knew it had a couple extra words in there. Yeah.
It is. It's a mouthful. I've got to change it. It's too much of a mouthful.
No, that's all right. Hey, it's just that I knew there's a couple of words in there. And of course, Radio FM88 Australia. So you can actually have a listen to Jeff and Julia afterwards, and you can pass on some of those points that Julia's provided you with. Next time you probably go and see a horse, you'll be thinking of Mr. Red. A horse, of course, is a talking horse. It's Mr. Red. I take it you never saw the show. You never saw it, did you?
No.
You have to talk to Tom on that one, I think. Mr. Red. Might be on YouTube these days, Wilbur. Anyway, that's another story in itself. Anyway, it's a good night for me.
Yep, good night for me as well. Thanks for joining us. And feel free to email us, either of us, if you'd like us to talk about certain things in particular that interest you.
Hang on a sec, before we go, there's I just want to send out a cheerio there to Vicky. Now, she's a nurse, travels Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, and she steps in as a locum nurse. You know, she's really quite an awesome healer in her own rights. You know, the duty of care when it goes to nursing, and there's the passion that comes with her. But, I believe she might be in Sydney at the moment. Okay, so thank you, Vicky. And then you've got a friend called Ken Jolly. Yep,
Ken. Yep. He's the energy warrior. He's doing the telekinesis and all other amazing stuff.
Okay, so Olga, now here's someone who's right out there. She's put up there, talking to the cows that you eat and all the elementals, berries is what I do since 8 years ago. Long, tall grass feels to me like you would take a blue pill. I think she's talking about the Matrix. Yeah. Weeding the best antidepressant that there is. Grassroots, old-fashioned, but have a mind like Dan Winter. Life is awesome, and thank you for talking. Yeah, so that's Olga, baby. Now, if I'm mistaken, I think that Olga, have you got an Olga in your network?
No.
Okay, then it's Olga who lives out the Boondocks there, out past Kilcoy.
Hey, Olga.
It's a bit too. If not, I sincerely apologise. And Olga, you can come back and tell us where you live. But no, that's about sharing. And I mean, sometimes you might have these things, and it's just sometimes you just need to have other people who talk about it and share their experiences.
And then we also have Sarah Marie Hieronymus with us today, and she basically specialises in plant medicine and plant spirits. So synchronicity that you're here?
I've just got that little thought just dropped in my head. On Saturday night, two of us saw a UFO.
Right.
Did I bring it to your awareness?
What colour was it?
Okay, so it was triangular in shape. Yeah.
Triangular, yeah.
Had 5 lights, yeah, and a big light. So there's one in the pointy of the triangle, yeah, and 2 either side. And the lights were like a bluish colour, yeah, and they were, the craft itself was coming across the New South Wales border up into Numbaba Valley Beach one area, and we were just waiting for it to come, and it took forever to come, and then we realised, oh, this is hovering, yeah. So then the lights went off, and we thought, oh, it must be a cloud that's just gone past. I mean, here's all the bloody mind things that start playing, isn't it? You know, the monkey syndrome. And lo and behold, it came back on, and we then raced around and got a third party to witness what we were witnessing. I mean, you know, you're like, want to share, don't you? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's so exciting when you do see one.
So anyway, so it came back at the same spot. So we thought, oh, it might be the cloud, I don't know. But we're waiting, watching, and then within about 2 minutes, it just slightly moved slightly to the right, and then boom, gone.
Yeah, I've seen them do that. They just disappear, like they time warp out.
And yeah. There you go. So, if you've had that type of experience, you can dial up and come in next week. Shift the consciousness, dream the dream. Welcome.
Yeah, disclosure.
All right, and Olga, yeah, thanks. It's we got on the money there. So that's our good friend out at Kilcoy. Well, there you go. Thank you very much. She's a mean hand, mate. She can play that piano accordion, eh? Very good. All right. Love your work.
Thank you.